Hello, Rachel.
How you doing?
Spectacular. How about yourself?
Pretty good.
Just pretty good.
Yeah.
Do you not feel the need to salute?
I'm just feeling a bit sad.
Sad?
Yeah.
Why are you sad, Rachel?
Well, our friend died.
Not all of them. One of them has one leg now. They're fine. They're totally fine. I'm sure McQueen is fine. He's in the future, so I won't get to know how fine he is.
Nope.
Rachel, we're back again here at the YumYumPodcast, where we are talking about science fiction television, but not any just science fiction television. We've finished off one in particular. On our Patreon, we were going through episode by episode of this 1990s show. Specifically, was it 95, 96? One season wonder, cancelled by Fox, sci-fi television series. And what one was it, Rachel?
Space Above and Beyond.
Space Above and Beyond. And we've gone through all of it now, each and every single episode. And we're here to reflect upon it all, to look back, go over our experience with it, our relationship with it, the highs, the lows, and what could have been. But for all those scratching their heads out there going, Yum Yum Podcast? What kind of a name is that? Guys, don't you think about branding? Who's going to look, when they type in whatever television series they want to hear a podcast of, whether it's Star Trek or Babylon 5 or Space Above and Beyond, they're going to see Yum Yum Podcast there, and they're going to say, why is this? What's this about? Rachel, what's this about?
That is a reference to Star Trek Discovery, where somebody was offered the opportunity to go murder an antagonist, and they replied with yum yum.
What a line. And it's not just as simple as that. You see, the thing about the Yum Yum moment from Star Trek Discovery was it really put a lightning bolt hit both of us when we saw that happen in real time. That was a line written in the prestige age of television, done with no sense of irony, and I'm still shocked that was allowed to be, and so we never forget. And we never forgive either. We never forget or never forgive. Payback's a bitch, Discovery. So every single time we remind you all about Yum Yum.
Yum yum.
Let's just rewind to where we were with this series before we started sitting down here with the microphone and recording our discussions on the episodes as they came along. So Rachel, can you walk us down the path of your journeys, your histories, and relationship with Space Above and Beyond?
Well, you tried to make me watch this several years ago. And you got me sitting down, watched the pilot. And I said, no, thank you. And you were like, well, fine, I'll just watch it on my own because I know it's awesome.
We weren't that long into our relationship either, maybe a year or so, perhaps.
No.
And do you recollect why the Space Above and Beyond pilot, or just the series itself, what it was putting down, repelled you at that stage?
It felt like evil capitalists in space. Oh no. Which is a very, very common sci-fi trope.
It's a staple.
It's a staple. And I was like, this doesn't feel like it's doing anything that interesting. And I fucking hated Nathan West.
What? But he's so lovable.
I thought he was a walking turd of a character. And I knew that part of that was on purpose, and that made me hate him even more. I was like, just, ew, no. This show's going to be about him. I ain't interested.
When it comes to this era of television, the mid to late 90s, what were the type of shows you were watching from that era? What are the things, because you weren't majorly into science fiction until we met.
No, I wasn't.
I guess the closest I can think of when it comes to that late is still the 2000s. I think of you with Gilmore Girls and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But from were you much of a 90s television watcher? Because I feel like I'm way more of that than the 2000s, and I feel like you are far more of I watched a lot more of the 2000s,
Yes.
even though we're the same age. I was way more stuck in like this period of time of TV.
I was just like, well, I didn't watch Everybody Loves Raymond. I didn't watch Malcolm in the Middle.
Frasier? Malcolm was in 2000s.
Occasionally watched Frasier. But like I watched Sex in the City.
Oh, okay.
A little bit, which is like 2000s, I think.
Yeah, so you just can't really pick it. For you, a lot of these formative television shows were the ones that were on when you were a teenager, right? Which is the 2000s. I just find it funny because, yes, I have my parents' taste in things. I would watch whatever they like to watch. And so many videotapes were recorded from shows from, a decade or so earlier. And that's how I came upon Space Above and Beyond myself. We had recordings off of the television. Specifically, Ray Butts was the one of choice that we would watch a lot. And a smattering of others, but mainly the Ray Butts episode. And so whenever I thought of Space Above and Beyond, I thought about it as this uproariously good time show with wacky things, and there's an ongoing space war.
Yeah.
And at some point, I did eventually watch the entirety of the series in one go and look at it as it laid, and it was very, very unique of an experience. I felt really bummed out that it got cancelled. It was one of those early shows where once I had consumed it and it had got prematurely cancelled, it got squashed into the dirt by the network. It was very much a disillusionment, and a massive amount of sorrow was had as well that still lingers even now on this watch. And that's a part of the takeaways that you get when you watch cancelled television shows, knowing that they're cancelled. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, like it's a weird effect that's very specific to those kind of shows.
With Space Above and Beyond, we were going to do it for the pod, and you still had those lingering feelings from the watch all of those years ago. And so we just had to do it because I wanted to watch it again. And I had a feeling that you perhaps wouldn't have gelled with it if we did watch it in our free time, just as a show that we would consume off the mic. And do you think that was a fair assessment now that you've seen it all?
Absolutely. Especially because I kind of proved that when we had the false start. Because, I would have begged you to let me stop watching.
You can listen to our episode on the pilot, and you were very dismissive. You didn't even want to learn Shane's name because you thought she was that unimportant. You're like, I'm like, you were Miss. What was the lady's name? Shane, and you go, oh, see how unimportant she is. Didn't bother to learn her name. Wowzers. But things have obviously evolved. Things have obviously evolved over the course of recordings. So let's hear about your overall thoughts on the series now that you have seen it from back to front, and you've had to go at it from that angle of analyzing each one of them. It's different to if we did just watch it.
Yes. We definitely would have hit a point where I wanted to drop it, as we mentioned, but also one where I would want to power through. And the note that I left for myself, like preparing for this for that question was, I'm surprised it won me over so much. I am genuinely surprised by that. I don't think you are, but I am.
I was happy that you were won over. My overall thoughts on it for this, for going over it on the pod and just being able to watch it again in the context of where we are in time and looking at Babylon 5 at the same time, as well as Star Treks of many different varieties. I have an even more deep respect for Space Above and Beyond, and a large part of it comes from it being an incredibly adaptive first season of a science fiction show. A lot of science fiction shows have weak first seasons that never learn or rarely learn the strengths hidden within itself. You have to, as a viewer, especially of the 80s and 90s shows like your Star Treks or Babylon 5, have to take a lot of the bad in the promise that good will come. And I feel like that wasn't as strong with this series. I really was noting down how they were improving as they went along, and they were noticing the things that were the strengths and just drilling down on those. And so when we get to the end of it all, it's a major bummer because it really hits its stride. Yes, there's even some weak spots in the back half, but nothing.
It is not perfect.
Nothing like the lows of some of the other sci-fi series first seasons that were its contemporaries. There is no...
This ain't got shit on TNG.
Yeah, the TNG, there's Code of Honor. There's Code of Honor. This doesn't have a Code of Honor episode. This doesn't have a TKO episode from Babylon 5 or Survivors, or and we could list so many others where they fall into that. But my general thoughts on it, of course, is I liked it very much.
Well now, isn't that beautiful? Do you feel it? His ass is yours. Her ass is yours, and yours is theirs. You may fly in individual rockets, but you are a squadron. You are a team. And if you risk your ass, you risk the team's.
Lots of emotions were felt. That was also something that I found myself quite in awe of, was how emotional of a series it was. Because in my recollections, I look at it at a very chin-stroking, oh, this is where it stands in the canon of TV science fiction. It was doing all of these things before these other shows would do it in a more popularized manner. Actually, looking at them scene by scene, episode by episode, it's a very emotionally driven show. What do you think about just that angle of it? Because when we were going into it, I was very much pushing the notion of it's going to be great to watch it because it has all of these amazing like plots and ideas and genre things that it was putting down before all of these other shows got to do it.
You were definitely selling me on the innovative nature of Space Above and Beyond. And I am intrigued by that still, and I wonder how that idea will play through when we watch this again. The tone of the show still surprised me in the way that it is so emotional and it's raw in a very intriguing way because of its approach to the central conflict in particular.
It doesn't shy away that it's a war story rather than a science fiction story.
They're not trying to paint a hyper-realistic version of a war in space. They're not trying to do a lot of... They're not trying to only do parallels to conflicts we're familiar with. it's trying to show what it's like to live through a war as a Marine. And it happens to be in space.
Happens to be in space?
That's what it feels like. It feels like we want you to we want to show you, and we want you, the audience, to feel what it's like to be in the shoes of these people when a conflict is going on. And to explore that, we're going to displace it forward in history.
Ironically, space in the title of Space Above and Beyond is the least consequential thing about it. It's something that's there. It definitely adds flavor, but it's not the hook of it like a lot of other space shows like Babylon 5, where it's a massive space opera and there's an allure to that. The series found its groove as it went along, but even in some of the earlier days, there were striking moments, and there's just so many bits and pieces, lines of dialogue, character interactions, just jokes even, as well as the hard-hitting emotional stuff that lingers with you after you watch an episode, let alone the entire series. So what were some of your favorite moments? What are your go-tos, or the ones that have stuck with you?
So I want to get the stupid one out of the way. The moment, or so I tend to think more plot points rather than really specific moments. And that's Vanessa's psychic.
That's one of your favorite moments.
But the sheer randomness of Vanessa being psychic and it being thrown away.
For a show that's very consistent.
I kind of love it.
Really?
It's a guilty pleasure sort of favorite. And that's why I wanted to mention it first.
Well, since you brought it up, because that's in one of my least favorite things.
Yes.
Would that have been an element you would have liked to have seen developed?
No.
It's one of those where I instantly rejected it. I said, this is not a series where we should have psychics.
No, it's just so, like, what the fuck?
I don't know what they were thinking with that one.
Yeah, you got aliens, but that doesn't mean that
we got robots. We got AIs.
We need psychics.
We got tanks. We've already got enough. We don't need psychics.
The sheer randomness of it and the what the fuck nature, I kind of like it.
Well, since you're giving a guilty pleasure one, I'll give you one of my guilty pleasures in return, which is in the first proper episode, The Farthest Man from Home.
Screaming?
No. I get a large amount of giggles in the fact that 20% of that episode is dedicated to Nathan West struggling to kick an air vent open. That there is...
so bad.
I get such an amusement out of the fact that Nathan West was such a loser that he had to fight against an air vent while he was crawling around. That was just one of those where...
it's like, oh, he's pathetic.
So a genuine one that's not goofy in that way. What are some of your faves?
Who monitors you?
Who monitors the birds? I monitor the birds. Who monitors you?
That's the part that I really like. Because it's like, yes, he's curious, but it's when his curiosity leads to a potential threat to their control over him that they really get pissed off. That's the part that I think of when I think of that episode.
It's an amazing sequence as well, the few with lines of dialogue as well. When it comes to at least who monitors the birds, because that is one of the seminal episodes, one of the most important and probably one of the best episodes. My favorite moment, and it's one that I think really encapsulates what Space Above and Beyond was going for, which is the disarming, the displacement, the just completely breaking apart the dehumanization that they've been giving the Chigs when that Chig he's fighting surrenders. He gives up, and they have that moment, and Cooper swaps over and he gives him the ring, and just that there, and where it leads to as well, where Cooper does kill that Chig later and feels bad about it, but just that moment of vulnerability that just shatters completely through this alienness that we've had of the Chigs for most of the time was very impactful. It's one of those things where if they didn't have that there in the series, it would be a lesser show.
Yeah, it recasts a lot of things and shed light where we previously didn't get that.
One of my favorite moments, an obvious one, and again, it's a fan favorite for a damn good reason, is Ray Butts going into that black hole and he's getting torn apart but also living forever, and Johnny Cash plays. And pair that up with the very ending where they throw those pancakes into space. Johnny Cash plays. It's iconic for a reason.
I guess Ray Butts has ate his last pancake. It has been an honor. 5'8".
Oh my God, I love how committed this series is to only using diegetic score.
I liked in the pilot when they had funky future music that didn't exist, as
that was cute.
Music from the past that they didn't even know the name of the band and misconstrued the Ramones for the Pink Floyd. Any others that linger for you?
Them eating the sugar dirt. It's such a moment of levity and heartbreak and endurance and resilience. There's so much meaning packed into that moment of them eating dirt because it has sugar that's kind of mixed in and melted into it.
They're that desperate, that worn down.
That desperate. They don't even care because they can still taste the sugar. So they'll eat the dirt because of that little bit of sugar. And that idea can be applied in so many different things, like the amount of shit that you'll put up with for that little bit of goodness. And I'm sure people who have listened to the pod have heard me use this saying because I love it. I genuinely live by this statement, which is hope fuels the body. And in that moment, that little bit of sugar gives them the hope to keep going.
And they use sugar later as a very solemn thing when they think they're about to die. It's their last meal as they share the little packet that Wang had. And the sugar dirt moment, it's the title of that episode, it's so important, is also a marvelous sequence that shows that Space Above and Beyond isn't glamorizing war. Because here is our heroes missing out on what would be the glamorous battle. The war, the sequence that could turn the war. They're missing out on that because they're stranded alone, starving basically to death, and they're desperate enough where they're shoving dirt into their mouths like animals. Abandoned. Shoving dirt into their mouth like animals. It's not glamorous. It's not fun. It doesn't make me think war is cool, actually.
No,
it doesn't make me think that at all. It makes me horrified.
Them on a whole nother level for what they're capable of surviving. And
there's a thing, you find that respect, but also it makes me deeply sad.
Oh, yeah. It's just like the military needs these people and abuses these people.
Mm-hmm.
And they abuse them as much as they can while they still meet the need. It, like, thinking of R&R, it's when they start fucking up that they're finally like, no, you get this little bit of R&R. You are more of a liability to us in the state that you're in, so we're going to give you something. It's not as much as they deserve, and they acknowledge that like, we can't give you proper R&R because this war is
so
too
demanding,
complicated, too demanding, and we are at a loss, and we can't afford to lose boots on the ground. So, but we also recognize that you are human beings and you are run down. And if we want to make sure that you don't die for stupid fucking reasons, we have to give you this. So there's this constant cost-benefit analysis that's being done to people and characters that you grow to really care about. And not only do you care about them and the way that they're being used as pawns, particularly thinking of the 58th, you grow to understand how McQueen and Tucker...
Yeah, Ross.
Yeah.
It's hard. Don't worry. I've got notes about Tucker Smallwood right after your statements because I have some quick fire ones I want to give off too.
Yeah. We learn how they are also just players being moved in the chess game of the war.
But some lives never leave your heart. Some lives are more important than our own.
I have to tell you, sir. Some time ago, I wouldn't understand what you were talking about.
Some quick fire moments of joy that I want to give because it would be remiss of me if I didn't.
Before you get into it, though,
didn't bring them up.
I will say I didn't bring up any McQueen or Ross.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Every McQueen and Ross scene is my favorite scenes, my favorite moments. Their friendship, their relationship, their camaraderie is so natural, so lived in. In the early days of our discussions, we would just lump it on those actors having amazing chemistry and being really, really skilled performers. But it's the writing as well. When I came to the end of Space Above and Beyond, one of the things I noted down was they as a writing team became very comfortable with lived-in relationships. There was that one where Shane's ex-fiancé or potential fiancé came back, and I believed in their relationship, even though it only existed in that 45 minutes. There's that implied history. They were really skilled at giving us that. So when we had two characters who... Did we even find out how they first met one another? I can't recollect. And even if they did tell us, you feel their relationship.
High school, but we don't know.
Oh, yes, of Shane and the fiancé. But I mean of McQueen and Ross. Do we even know how they met?
No, they've just been together forever.
They've just been together forever. Ross and his guitar, excellent. Every single moment of that. It kept coming back, and it brought a smile to my face. But one of the most important scenes to me in Space Above and Beyond, where it was a real turning point, and I think it was for both of us, was when Hayden talked to McQueen about why this all still happens. Why would people vote for a guy who's an obvious fascist? Why is society structured the way it is? And she just lays it out very succinctly, and it's even more bitter-sweet because she's a villain. When at the end of all of this, she's a bad guy, and yet she has a fully realized understanding of why the way things are, why it is how it is. And that conversation was really, to me, the first time where the writing staff communicated one of their worldviews of this universe so cleanly. Because before, it was always a bit clumsy and plotting and kind of stumbling over itself a bit when it was trying to communicate themes and ideas and these headier things that obviously are dwelling within the people creating this show, and they're wanting to use the genre of both war and sci-fi to get across things that are far more grandiose. And that was the first time where I really think that they succeeded. They just hit it out of the park. That was just a really well-constructed scene.
These are strange days, Colonel. There are a lot of scared people.
And I must admit, with good reason. And there are a lot of paranoid people with no good reason. They believe what they feel. To patronize them is a serious miscalculation. To ignore them, to hope that they will go away is very dangerous.
So you stand up to them?
At the right time. And you can't let them know you're doing it.
I feel like we do need to acknowledge some specific silicate moments. Them discovering the model in the, like, floorboards of the ship.
Oh, El Royale, yeah.
El Royale being under the floor.
And he's all ollie oxen free.
Yeah.
What a creep.
I really like that whole exchange. Because they're so done and he's so keen to piss them off.
Oh, when they interrogate him, and he just calls McQueen out for being a war criminal. Just straight up calls him a war criminal. McQueen doesn't give a shit.
When they, torture him and they're just like, well, he's not human, so...
Take him down to the shop, boys. Wang was uncomfortable with it because he himself was tortured.
Yes.
The Angriest Angel is filled with great moments like that. Remember the exchange between McQueen and Ross about, I'll be son of a bitch if I attend your funeral, Ty.
Yeah.
We'll talk about your mother when I come back. And it's just like...
Yeah, like, that is filled with great moments. There are so many episodes where it's just like, can I say it's the whole episode is my favorite moment, one of my favorite moments.
Can I ask you this?
Mm-hmm.
What is, if you were just talking to somebody who's seen it, somebody who hasn't, what would be the thing, the scene or the beat, the exchange that you would say is Space Above and Beyond? Like, this is the show. This is what it's about. This is it captured wholeheartedly.
Do you have an answer?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's surprising. I'll give mine if you want to give some thought to yours. It's from an episode I didn't like. Stardust, an episode that I found to be quite lackluster, but there's a conversation between Cooper and this unnamed colonel, this woman who is having to use technology from afar to navigate them. And they have this conversation where he is having a go at her for not having killed someone. Have you ever gone out there and been in the fight? How she reacts to that, to me, is Space Above and Beyond, where it is the pure understanding that war is a thing that exists. The military is a thing that exists. Certain mindsets when those happen are things that are going to be obvious. But why do they need to be that way? She is there. She knows, yes, this is the stakes of war, but why should your mentality be about the pride of killing and the pride of to die? Why is what I'm doing not heroic, where I'm making sure that the lives of our boys are saved so I don't see your name on a war memorial? That's real heroism. That's what we should be really looking at. And I think that really, really got at the heart of what Space Above and Beyond was going for.
Yeah, it really does. Some of the scenes with Russ where he's pointing out that, like, he feels every death that he's responsible for. And just like, and how in so many ways it was easier when he was on the front lines, being in control of killing the enemy, but how being a Commodore, he sort of feels more responsible for the deaths of his own than the deaths of the enemy.
He's thinking about the picture in a different way than how he used to. Yeah, Sugar Dirt has so much going for it when it comes to that, because what you're getting at is that the many conversations, but I think the one where they're pouring out the whiskey or bourbon together,
Yeah.
and Ross is looking at his pictures of his family, and he goes through that. He goes through that sentiment. So would that be the one for you?
Yeah. Like, if I had to choose a different one, because I do think, as usual, you are right.
The show wasn't perfect. There were many
No.
bad moments, many head scratches, many moments that just were stinky, bad, poorly written, dated as well. And I basically only have one that I want to flag up, and it's almost a cheat because it also is the answer to my least favorite episode. So I'm just going to say it. The entire Fear Planet episode, the episode where all of their fears came out and they acted like dickheads and were screaming all the time, because that was my least favorite aspect of Space Above and Beyond as a whole, was when they would write the characters as shrieking in their character flaws. And that doesn't necessarily mean they make the actors yell real loud, but it's a recurring thing that was in the pilot and in some of the later episodes as well, where they know what the characters' negative traits are, and they just turn them up to 11 for whatever the script would need. Cooper was very guilty of that at times, but so was Shane, and so was Nathan, of course. But they would even do it with Danfus, and they did in that episode where they just had her be so unlikable, yet the actor is too likable to make that work. And my least favorite that's my least favorite thing in Space Above and Beyond, is they know the pros and cons of their characters, and when they want drama to happen, they can too often lean on, we just heighten the cons to a ludicrous degree, and that episode that's the plot. That's literally the plot. And that could work, but it just didn't work in that one. And they are grilling, Ross and McQueen are grilling her throughout the whole entire episode in that framing device of them interrogating her. And they come off as just pricks as well for no real reason either. It's really an episode that said, what happens if we made all of our characters pricks? And it was a real wound to the show because it had just started to pick up a little, and then that just was it stumbling really far down. So I've cheated a bit by saying both my least favorite part and my least favorite episode, but they're the same.
Yeah, you've just done a combo.
Understand. I love you. But if any of you try to make me go in there, I'll have to kill you.
Fix the radio, or there's gonna be blood on the floor where you're standing.
Stop this! Stop! This is not us!
I'm gonna go chronological, because the one that I wrote down was Nathan West trying to sneak on to the spaceship before it launched.
It was humorous though because they caught him immediately.
It
didn't work.
Was screaming at the screen because I was like, you fucking idiot. You have enough knowledge to know that this won't fucking work, but you're this desperate, but you're not, like, come on. There's Like, come on.
It was a tough starting place because we barely know the guy, and what we do know is he's incompetent and arrogant, and he's going to be our lead. And it was hard to tell then, even if you did know, like me, in the pilot, if we were supposed to like Nathan West in not just the sense of likability, but wanting to follow his adventures. And that was an example where, yes, it's incompetent on purpose. It's incompetent on purpose because that's the thing is he's so desperate. This is his play and it's a bad one.
Yeah, but it's all he's got. And it's just like, oh, you've written him into a corner, but he wants to do something. And it's just like, it was just so boring and frustrating because it's like, yes, this has to happen because he has to do something, but also I know how this is going to go because it needs to set up a show. So it's not going to work. So it was just like this, it left me very agitated. That's something that I'll go with. Another moment. Now, this moment on its own, it wasn't too bad. It wasn't too bad. What it signaled in terms of the interference on behalf of the network is why it's one of my least favorite moments.
Is it the bar?
Nope.
I should have added that to mine. They added a funky bar with bright colors.
Yeah,
it's not even a bad set, but it's not.
No, but
it's not what the show was.
Yeah.
That's saloon doors.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking give me a break.
No, it's not that. It's one very specific scene.
Oh, which one? Which one?
Come on, take a guess. You guess the bar, you get another guess. Now that I've given you another hint.
Well, it's a scene.
It's a scene.
Of the network having interfered with the show?
Yeah, it's like, it's got Fox's grubby fingerprints all over it.
The sad thing is, I can't tell you immediately because there are too many of those scenes. That's another thing. And
yes,
it's hard because I didn't want to put any of that in my conversation because that's not the show's fault, right?
No,
like that's the nature of what happened to the series.
I put this in because it threw me through a fucking loop. And it distracted me so much.
What is it?
Coolio.
Fuck, of course, Coolio.
Coolio.
Fucking Coolio. R&R. And it's not even like, you know what the most annoying thing is? They didn't even use him that much.
He's not there for long. But you see what I mean? Like, it's so distracting that it's Coolio and he's there for just that one scene and then he's gone. And it's just like, what the fuck?
And he's in full Coolio mode, too. It's like the hair and everything. It's at the peak of Coolio. And how desperate and grabbing was that? Just so pathetic that
like, what the fuck
they had to make Space Above and Beyond bend over like that.
This?
Jesus, that's a bad moment. You know, jeez
Louise.
I'm
glad you agree. Do you find that moment to be fair for me highlighting?
Yeah, if I had to just flag one network interference thing that I really didn't like, I really hated the new credits that they put in with the voiceover from McQueen. Yeah. And look, we actually praise the actor James Morrison so much, but one of the funny things is he's not good at doing the voiceovers. They had like a previously on. He's not good at doing the voiceovers. He's got a great voice, but that does not. They should have given it to Ross. He is good at voiceovers. I've heard him do it before. He's always good at it. Tucker Smallwood, always great.
I want the 5-8 on this rescue. Sir Admiral Stenner had confined them to double up the wild cards and deal them.
Everyone's on the edge of their seat, Rachel, wanting to know what you, the first timer of Space Above and Beyond, what your favorite episode is. What is Rachel's favorite episode? I don't know what it is. And I don't think Rachel knows what mine is either. So I'm Rachel, I'm on the edge of my seat.
I had one written down.
Okay.
But I'm going to change it. Because I think what I originally wrote is what I think is the best episode.
Which is different to what is your favorite episode.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite is Angriest Angel.
I mean, that is also arguably the best episode, so it's a good pick. Why? Break it down for us.
I love this bittersweet nature of that episode because McQueen is so vulnerable and raw, but rigid. Like, it's kind of like you're getting to see that outer hard shell and the soft underbelly at the same time. And it feels uncomfortable in a way to get that close to that character. Because, you know, under normal circumstances, he wouldn't be this way. And getting to see him in action and in that primary role and dealing with the trauma of losing his previous squadron, because that's something that we see and we feel the weight of that on him, and him being the one to take out von Shiggy.
Shiggy von Richter.
Shiggy von Richter. Is therapeutic for him in a way because it's him putting himself back in that place. He's not going out as a wild card. He's going out as an angriest angel.
Yeah, the angriest angel. Yeah, he's in the full black and everything. That's a great pick, and it's one that is a banger because of some amazing action, some amazing suspension,
got a great
tension,
mix of things
music
going on
spectacular.
in it. Yeah. Oh God, I love.
But to your point, it's a character study on arguably the best character in the show, and it is very much in line with who he is as a person. It's hard-edged, and yet it's intricate. And it's got little funny moments. Like, I really adored when he yelled at them,
Well,
in
no,
the
that's
bar.
not sweet, but
No, but that's not sweet. But I love when he yelled at them at the bar, and he's listing off what he thinks they'll get up to when the war's over, and then he just looks at West. He's like, "You go back to Mayberry." Like, he thinks so little of West,
and it's like, well, that's what you want. You want to get Kylan back, and you want to go back home, and you want to
live the rinky-dink white picket fence life. You're milk toast. You're an Andy Griffith Show character. You suck.
From that moment onwards, I really, it became an integral part of how I saw McQueen, that he labeled himself a lifer, which is something that he'd brought up before, but I felt it so much more after that episode. Now, do you want to guess what I originally wrote down or give your pick?
Oh, Who Monitors the Birds, probably?
Yep.
It is probably the greatest with the Angriest Angel. Yeah, I was looking through and I had a tough time because there were so many that I love.
Pearly?
Oh, okay. No, actually, Stardust. No, I loved so many of them.
Okay.
And to
Man,
me...
Fathers from Home. I know.
Oh, you got it. That was it, actually. I love the bit with French Stewart screaming. I'm the man Fathers from Home. Remember when French Stewart was in this? It was so weird. It was a weird casting. That was weird. But wait a moment. What about the episode where Dan Foose had ESP? Could it be ESP?
God,
Top tier episode.
Stupid.
Richard Kind.
How can the show have that? And amazing where somebody unironically pulls out an acoustic guitar
Yeah.
and to serenade somebody over the radio.
That was in the Christmas episode. That was a great episode. All jokes aside, it was a tough pick, a real Sophie's choice, because in the last handful, there were some of the best. Sugar Dirt was my number 2 in the end, because that episode almost beat this out, but I kept coming back to this one, which is Stay with the Dead. The one where Nathan West... It's the big Nathan West episode. It's the one where he gets his
because it really surprised
injuries,
you.
and it did surprise me, and it was a very humanizing and harrowing and sad episode for the series, but it gave Nathan West something where before he was a great little archetype, he was a great little throwback to a certain era of TV and of films, but this was the one where they humbled him so much.
Mm-hmm.
They really kicked him down several flights of stairs.
They broke him down completely and rebuilt him.
And it wasn't a calloused thing of the writers.
No,
and I didn't feel manipulated
it wasn't
about it.
We're going to revamp the character.
It's not the most exciting episode. It's not the most groundbreaking episode. It's still
not the most emotional one either.
For me, it was. I found myself quite choked up when watching that. The performance from Morgan Weiser is great in it, but yes, that's the one. Stay with the Dead was the one that I just kept coming back to over and over and over again when we were watching this, and since we've finished, it's just been a haunting presence for me, and so I have to put it in my number 1 spot because it did affect me a lot.
Mm-hmm. I want to try and sort of explain my statement about how I said it's not the most emotional episode. It's one where it's highly emotional consistently. Whereas when I think of the emotional moments in Space Above and Beyond, I tend to think of the emotional moments that are kind of the bursts in other episodes that really showcase the way that they can orchestrate the tone of the show, where that episode is much more about them layering it up,
and
scene after scene after scene. So it's a different kind of emotion.
And what pairs it beautifully with Who Monitors the Birds is they are character episodes where the other members of the ensemble, for the most part, if not entirely, are not there. With Stay with the Dead, it's really about West, and McQueen's there as well for him to bounce off of, but it is about West. While in the other heavy hitter emotional ones, the ensemble is there. In The Angriest Angel, McQueen's there, but there's also this person. Ross has emotions about it. Same with Sugar Dirt. Everyone has emotions about it, which is great, but this is purely on this one character, and that's why Who Monitors the Birds is great as an episode as well. But
and Angriest Angels, we are both really drawn to the character work that Space Above and Beyond does. So it's not surprising that our favorite episodes are the ones where it's most clearly about one character and their shift in their journey of after that point all of them have a new normal afterwards. The experiences in that episode change them and change your view of them.
I've realized over the course of doing this podcast, not just in terms of Space Above and Beyond, but Babylon 5 and even Star Trek Discovery, one of my favorite character arcs is the misfit, irresponsible, dumbass, prick, idiot character who over time becomes far more wise and sensible, and they have their heads screwed on straight. When we watched Farscape for the first time, I love the character of Jewel, who's a not popular character apparently with the fans, but I love that type of character. And Nathan West is similar, where they're irredeemably annoying, but you know that there's an intent behind it. It's not the same as just a character who's bad, like, say, Neelix in Star Trek Voyager, where Neelix is just a character you know is annoying and they don't know what to do with him. Nathan West, there was a specific intent behind it, and this episode really forged that, really put it in stone and said, this is what we were doing with the character and this is what we're doing with him going forward. And so when we get to the very final scene of Space Above and Beyond, where it's just him in the bunk with Cooper, we've earned that because of Stay with the Dead.
Yes.
I have faith in the 58th. I know they're alive. And now I'm begging you to have faith.
I've already given away my least favorite episode, and I'm going to be surprised if it's not yours as well, but perhaps you have something else in the works when it comes to your least favorite episode of Space Above and Beyond.
Furthest Man from Home.
The Farthest Man from Home. The very first one.
The very first episode of the series proper, I found like nothing in that episode. Like, I remember nothing. I care for nothing. Anything that I do sort of remember, I'm like, oh, God, that was fucking awful. Like, it's setting up so many things, but it didn't make me care about anything or anyone. Like, it was such a dud for me. Like, the ESP episode is so fucking ridiculous, and they drop it like a piece of lead when it's done. I find it somewhat amusing.
It's a guilty pleasure.
The fucking screaming.
Nathan's running around in the dark by himself being an idiot. And there is one thing that you remember from it, though.
Selfish fucking dick.
There's one thing that you remember from it, though, which is, and this is actually one positive from an episode.
Yeah.
Cooper has to cut bits of his helmet so it fits him because of the belly button on the back of his neck. That's like the one thing. That, and we get the VR.
But I forget that that's in that episode.
Mm-hmm.
Because I want to just chuck the whole thing out. So I'm like, oh, they set that up in the pilot, right? I'm not lying to myself about that.
I know that it's always a learning experience when you're making a show, even if you are a writer that's worked on other things. These two guys worked on X-Files already. They were the best writers, arguably, at that time on the X-Files. And they were given their own show. And I understand that that's something that you have to overcome. But it is just funny how, even to this day, there's a higher percentage of episodes in the first handful of a show that are terrible, and it makes you wonder how people stuck with them. Because the pilot, I actually think it's a pretty decent pilot for what it is, a 90-minute sci-fi pilot. I think it's one of the better ones, but it's still not great. But The Farthest Man from Home is one where I almost put it in my list, but I remembered so little about it other than Nathan West being a dickhead and running around in the dark.
Yeah, but like, that's why it goes to the top of my list, because I'm like, there's nothing of note.
I'm sure for those who have gone through our catalogue, it won't be that difficult to pin down who our favorite characters are.
Nope.
But I I still had to give it some thought. Out of our proper 58th Squadron, Nathan West was actually my favorite because of that arc, because of that growth, because of that development. And I've always defended the performance. I always have thought that actor in particular understood the character from the very beginning, from the pilot, even though Nathan West wasn't a character that you wanted to follow. The actor always portrayed the honesty of Nathan West, even if the writing wasn't. And so out of our main 58th, our wildcards, he's my favorite, weirdly enough. I thought it would have been Shane or Cooper, and they were great too, obviously. I love Shane a lot, and she had some marvelous episodes, and I love her sadness that she brings. But West was just the character that he anchored the show. That was his job. At the beginning, he was the lead, but at the end, he became far more of a team player, far more of a co-lead, and just an anchoring presence in the series when it came to the actual boots on the ground 58th. I felt a lot for him, but my favorite character is not McQueen, actually. I know it's going to be a shock, but it's Ross. He's another type of character archetype. It's
not a shock to me.
He's another type of character archetype I love, which is seemingly at the beginning hard bastard man who's, by the books. He's a company man, if you will. He's a top dog. But as we get to know him, you peel back those layers. He's a teddy bear underneath it all. He has a guitar. He loves singing. He loves spending time with his friends, thinking about his family. And he does understand his role. He knows when the command can remove that level of humanity. And he has to grapple with that. And
strawberries and cream.
The strawberries monologue is probably one of the reasons he's my top character. That's hilarious. Tucker Smallwood gives such a brilliant performance. You can just feel that the actor himself has a history when it comes to this. He's a guy that was in Vietnam, and so he brings a
authenticity,
a certain air to it where you just believe him no matter what. He is also very skilled at being a genre actor, being a character actor, where he can deliver those lines like nobody else. He gets the best line in the show in the final episode about get out the wild cards, shuffle them, and deal them. That's one of the greatest things I've ever heard, and it's also his line delivery, but he is my favorite. I just love him so much. The guitar, the singing, the conversations about leadership, command, ethics, and emotions. And as I stated, he comes out of the gate as the slightly ominous, hard-nosed, upper level boss guy, but you know that he's got his hands tied and he doesn't like it. But as we go along, he becomes far more defiant about that.
Yeah.
And far more.
Then he starts to make his own rules.
He starts to fight back a bit, but also he still knows his place. It's got to be Ross. I love Ross. And he never got to be in the opening credits. What a mistake. I know that there's probably some practical reasonings why, but damn, what a loss that was. He was just a guest star in it all. Like, guest star. No. Main character for me. Loved him.
I am missing one bowl of fresh strawberries in thick, heavy cream. Gentlemen, if you know the whereabouts of the stolen fruit, you may place it outside my cabin door within an hour. No questions asked. If after 1 hour the strawberries are not returned, I will resume being your commodore.
Who are your favorites, Rachel?
You want to guess, Ryan?
Now, if I have to pick out of the 58th, it's going to be a bit difficult, but I'm getting that you're a Cooper girl.
I'm a Cooper girl.
What about Cooper landed for you? Because you did not like Cooper in the pilot. He was too much of an angsty, long-haired, angry boy.
Yeah, the the same reasons that you like West, I like Cooper. The character arc. From being a fucked up child in a man's body to a decorated war veteran. And I buy it. I love Cooper because he belongs in the world of space above and beyond. He's not... Those circumstances wouldn't occur anywhere else. He's such a unique character to the world of the show. And it's done so well that I feel like it has to be him. But at the same time, it also has to be McQueen.
They go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. Like, I wanted to cheat and say, Tanks are my favorite character. Because I was like, I can't pick between them. I can't, because I love them both for similar and different reasons. And I adore the prejudice allegory that they have with the Tanks. The idea of this subservient race of people that were brought into existence to benefit other people.
To benefit the military complex.
And gaining independence, but struggling against the world that created them and trying to find their place in it. And the complex relationship that they have with each other as McQueen tries to guide Cooper through things. And it's just like, oh, how rich their relationship is feeds into why they're both my favorite character.
Not every character gets the big chance to shine as bright as those, and they're going to be the ones that you don't care about as much. I don't think there's any that I hate in this show properly.
None of our primary cast.
No, exactly. Even some of the guest cast, I loved Sewell. I loved Sewell. He was such a piece of shit.
Love yourself a slimy company, man.
But I sadly, even though I think the actor is giving one hell of a performance with little material, it doesn't save the fact that they got little material. It has to be Vanessa Danfus.
Yeah.
I struggled to even remember how to pronounce her name throughout most of our records. I kept saying Danfu. I never said Damp House. That's a common mistake people do because I see it written down. But I'm
pretty sure I did that.
It's not to say that she's a nothing character, but
No,
she's definitely the
she
character.
falls to the bottom.
She's definitely the character you could see in the writer's room. They said, oh shit, yeah, we got to write something for her. I don't know. She has a boyfriend who writes her letters.
She gets a Dear John letter.
I guess she has ESP. Like, one of the things that I think was so obvious that they never really dug into was she was religious. She was a believer. There was the end of the ESP episode where she prayed, and that was something that was underneath.
Yeah, and unique about her as well.
It was something there that I really wish that they dug into more, because we also had a chaplain character in this series who was just there all the time giving funerals.
I wrote him down as my least favorite character.
Why?
Because
he was consistently there, at least.
Yes, he was consistently there, but I wrote him down. It's not a fair assessment. It's not a fair reason.
Because they don't flesh him out to be anything more than the guy who gives funerals.
Yes. But the reason that I wrote him down was it's a bit of a cop-out. He does appear in multiple episodes, so he counts. He counts.
He's in the greatest McQueen scene of them all.
Yes. But I wrote him down because he was the first character that came to mind when I was like, oh, that fucking piece of shit. Like, when I was trying to think of worst characters, because every time he came on the screen, I told him to fuck off.
Why? Why are we so vitriolic towards this guy who did nothing?
I don't
The
know.
most he did was question McQueen's faith in God.
I don't know. Just every time he was there, I was like, oh, just fuck off.
Well, he's a character.
It's like, I never really liked the military ceremony scenes.
Well,
and he's there for a lot of
He's
them.
there for practically all of them, and I got what they were trying to do with the military ceremonies, because you have to have them. That's a part of the life, and it was a series that when people died, even if they weren't characters we knew, we would hold funerals for them, because that's emphasizing the themes and the points we're trying to make as a series. I really wish if this series, if it got to continue, or if I had to rewrite things, I think having Vanessa be a far more openly religious character rather than one where it's like you can see it in the distance, and having her have conversations with the chaplain and making the chaplain more of a character, because for a lot of issues hit in Space Above and Beyond, religion was not one of the strong ones hit upon. It was like theology was hit upon, but not spirituality and religion. And I think that should have been there, because with a lot of
they skipped a beat with
a lot of people in the military, a lot of people that I know, they also have a very strong spiritual and religious conviction. And I think from a dramatic standpoint, that would be so juicy to sink your teeth into, of the conflict of interest there, of people who are believers of something higher, but they're also in a part of a society where they destroy, where they kill, where they take away creation to defend creation. That's something there that you can play with, and they never got to. And that's why Danfoos is my least favorite, because
of the potential that was there.
The potential, and they really wasted that actor's time too much, because she's a good actor. I like her presence. I always had warmth towards her, but I felt bad that she wasn't getting to do anything in the show that much. And when she did, you got the ESP episode, which I wouldn't say is an embarrassing episode, more just is kind of boring. Like, I didn't feel like they made her character embarrassing like they do with so many female characters in these types of series at the time.
It's disappointing because you see the potential in that arc, and you do have other arcs and themes and ideas that come through the show, through the whole thing, or are there for bits and pieces or weaved through, that are so much better that you're like, oh, why couldn't you gotten that? Like, I mentioned that, and this is one of my favorite arcs and themes that runs through the whole show, the tank prejudice, because it does what great sci-fi can do, which is showcases values of today by using the context of the future and highlighting the weird justifications that humanity has given for saying, no, you're less, no, you're more.
I do it so no one, human or in vitro, will ever be able to say that all in vitros are lazy or cowards or don't stand for anything.
One of the major things within this series that will stay with me, and I think was its strength, was character continuity.
Yeah.
They were great at continuity in other ways as well, when it comes to lore and world building and building suspense and mystery and themes of war. But to me, it's about character continuity. They really kept track of the characters and were building them up and fleshing them out and making them more and more and more and more real to me. They started out as archetypes. They started out as tropey cliches.
Yeah.
They
became 3D as you went along.
And it was on purpose. This is this type of character. This is this type of character. To deconstruct these, you have to have constructed them first. And that was the gold. That was the pure sweet nectar to me of Space Above and Beyond. I was truly in appreciation of how these writers nailed the character work. Just conversations between characters were the things I liked more than the action or the battle or the sci-fi. It was people in their bunks talking, or people standing right next to each other having an intense conversation, or even just passing some jabs at one another. That's what was really great, and that's what held a lot of episodes together. There are many episodes, and this is what I would have liked to have actually seen if the show got to continue. Most of the episodes don't have them a compelling plot. It's just the plot exists so that we can hang off all of these amazing character beats and interactions. A lot of it is, they have to go to this place, and that's it. Like
they
have
get
to go,
a mission. They have to go somewhere.
It's inconsequential too often.
Yes.
But the character stuff was so good that I almost didn't care.
Nah,
and I say almost because there were times I did care too much.
You forgive it. You're like, yeah, it's ugly, but it's a support beam.
So, since this was cancelled, we know some of the things that they were going to do. We don't know some of the things. But for the future of the show, what would you have liked to have seen personally? What were some elements that you would have liked to have seen grow or enter in?
I wrote down... I responded to the question slightly differently than that, which was, what direction was I expecting them to go?
Well,
Not necessarily like I wanted to see this. It's, this thing would be a natural evolution of the themes that it was grappling with, which is humanizing the Chigs and seeing more from their perspective directly.
Yeah, I recollect somewhere, maybe the audio commentaries, they're wanting to show Chig children and families, Chig civilian life a little bit more, so that we can have that understanding what you're talking about. When it comes to what I thought they were going to do, or what I would have expected in terms of looking at it like that, McQueen would be a severely different character in the show because he was wounded. I think it would have been a season where McQueen spends most of it, at least the first half of it,
in rehab.
Being down and out, figuring out how he is a person, let alone if he even wants to be a Marine still, because what is...
And how can he be a Marine when he doesn't have his full abilities?
And what does that group look like when McQueen isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, what do they look like when McQueen isn't their symbol that they hold on to? McQueen isn't the locket.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things. But to me, the biggest note I would have given Space Above and Beyond, if it had continued, was to have made more engaging individual episode plots. You had a handful of them, but I would have liked some more rip-roaring, that was an awesome plot to an episode, rather than saying, those were awesome scenes in an episode where the plot is they had to go over there, or they had to run around in the dark. Like, I love Stay with the Dead because of how it's structured, but like the plot is... They were on a planet where they were shooting a bunch of things in the dark, and then he got a head wound and he couldn't remember. Like, when you break it down like that, it's not the most engaging, but it's how it's constructed, and that's what they were really great at.
And how it's constructed and how it's presented and how it's performed.
And the messages they were going for, but...
It breathes life into it.
I would have really appreciated them just giving us some more hard-hitting, wowzer, knock me out of my seat plots in an episode, rather than teasing of those.
Yeah. Like, there are many points in this show where you feel like their hands are tied behind their backs.
But then you get The Angriest Angel, and that's an episode where That's the plot. Like, that's an awesome plot.
It's like, oh, they broke free for that episode. But, yeah, it does so much with the little that Fox gave them. And I am so glad that we ended up watching it together. And that we did it for the pod as well, because I do have a different appreciation for it, having been analytical as I watched it for the first time, because that's not the way that we do our other shows. It's always a rewatch.
Mm-hmm. And rewatches bring about certain things. You know what you want to talk about more, or you have a different appreciation for something when you see it a second time.
And you put value on different things.
You get context that is shone upon where, I was rewatching Space Above and Beyond, but watching it with you where you've seen it first time, you're telling me all of these things that I haven't thought about, or maybe we're in complete agreement on, and it just says, okay, so there is something here. Whether it's both negative and positive, like, oh, you really like McQueen, I really like McQueen. So why is that? Why do we both agree on that? Or why does The Farthest Man from Home fail as an episode where we both agree that it sucked, but we have different relationships and histories and mentalities? And so I'm glad that we did it. I'm glad that we did it. There's a sadness that not only that we're done now and we'll be moving on to whatever else, but just this is a series that deserved more. It deserved a chance. It was striving to do something unique, and it got murdered by Fox, and it's buried. It's something where it's hard to get a copy of. Many people don't know it, and if they do know it, it's a lot of, oh, I've always been meaning to watch it, but I didn't get around to it. I'm not going to probably, but I want to. And that's the real tragedy. And many people don't get around to it because it's a one-season cancelled show. So what's the point of investment? Why should I bother? And I would say, too, that the big failing of Space Above and Beyond, which is also its success, is it's a show that is demanding a lot from its viewers, especially in the time it was made. Not only were many episodes demanding you watch...
It was built different.
It was built different. Not only was it demanding that you watch the episodes, a lot of them, specifically Who Monitors the Birds, with a keen eye. You can't just walk away and do something else. But tonally, it was very demanding. It was a dour show. It was a very brooding, dark series, and many people don't like that, actually. Even in this day and age, there are many people who don't like that, and some who really don't like that in their sci-fi, especially in an era where sci-fi was defined on television by Star Trek, the peppy, optimistic, we can do it, humanity's going to get it together. I've always thought of this one statement that a friend of mine said where we were going to watch a more dark movie, and they said, oh, no, I don't want to watch that. I only want to watch things that make me happy. And I'm not that type of viewer, but the thing is, many, many people are. And so Space Above and Beyond just exists in this realm where it's striving to be a hard-hitting show, and many people actually don't want this type of mirror held up against them. They don't want that. And war shows are hard to sell. They're just, like, what other war show have you watched? Like a war show? What, Band of Brothers?
No.
That's a miniseries. That's not something that was like, we're going to do 5 seasons.
No.
22 episode seasons.
No, and even like the war stuff in Babylon 5 isn't the whole show.
You wouldn't call Babylon 5 a war show.
No.
It has wars in it.
Yeah.
It deals with those, but you wouldn't say it's a war show.
No, but obviously...
Space opera.
Yeah, that's one of the first shows that I think of when you ask me a question about shows on our podcast.
And I would think you could believe in and trust someone who's working to
be able to spend a night with you back home, rather than going out to look up your name on some war memorial wall.
I think it's still as good as I said it was, and as many people do. If anything, it's even better to talk about it more. We've been really pushing that with you out there of watch the show, engage with the show, look at it, discuss it, because a lot of people don't. They either have watched it and said, yeah, it's really good, and
it's worth the effort.
It's worth the effort to really dig into the things that they were putting in this series. And I hope people have enjoyed us doing that, even if we started out in the first half of it, finding our way and not knowing how to feel about it and getting pissed off with it. By the end, we came around, I think, and especially you, Rachel. But any closing thoughts and comments you want to bestow upon people before we both agree that this is a yum yum?
No. Yeah. No question. Space Above and Beyond, Season 1, the one and only, is a yum yum.
Yum yum.
You can find us on your social medias of choice under YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. Email us over at yumyumpod@gmail.com to let us know your thoughts, your feelings, or any questions you have for us about the things we've discussed here or the series itself of Space Above and Beyond. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know your favorite moments or least favorite moments, your characters, your go-to scenes when it comes to what Space Above and Beyond is, or any interesting little details that you've picked up. We want to hear from you, so you can find all of this in the description below. We had this as a Patreon exclusive to begin with, where you can find all of that and so much more on our Patreon if you want to support us.
Is
if
it
you want to
at
chuck us
3
a buck.
bucketfuls yet?
Is it 3 bucketfuls worth of content? Probably 4 at this point. We have a group Discord that you can be a part of and interact with other people who engage with us and just have a good time. Again, YumYumPodcast on Patreon. Help support the show and just spread the word of mouth around. Just say, hey, you like science fiction TV? Well, these guys, they're breaking down episodes of science fiction TV. What's their name again? Oh yeah, YumYumPodcast. Why are they called Yum Yum? You gotta listen to find out. See? That's how you sell it.
Ryan makes sure that we tell you each and every episode.
I do. You know who was actually my favorite character?
Well, we didn't need to say it.
We do need to say it.
Well, we need to say our final farewell.
Are you gonna miss this bit? Are you gonna miss this? Is this the thing that you're really gonna miss about Space Above and Beyond, saying a fond farewell?
R.I.P. Pags.
God bless you, Pags. So that's a yes, yeah? You gonna miss that?
Here's to Pags.